proudest day, and the proudest time in the seat of a rally car, because that day and that hour and those minutes, I got the bit between my teeth. You know, I really stood up and was counted and said, this is not getting away. I remember when we pulled on our helmets and Donald says to me, what are we doing? I said, we're going for gold, Barrett. That's all was said. I can still picture that run. That was just the best run ever.
Welcome along to Krunching Gears, the Rally podcast. We have a very special episode this week, and it's going to be an in conversation with. And who's it in conversation with but Gerry McGarrity. Anybody that knows anything about rallying will know Gerry. Connery is just one of those guys that's been around forever, and he seems to be involved in everything.
That's it. Like, you know, not just rallying, you know, his whole background, his family thing was motorsport in general. But Gerry has touched so many rallying lives and rally, you know, people's careers in rallying. Like, he's been involved in supporting and encouraging and developing talent, as well as actually, you know, car preparation. And it's such a fantastic story. And, you know, we were so lucky to get the opportunity to sit down with Gerry and deliver what's going to come up in the next couple of episodes. But not only that, Kevin, we did it in front of a live audience, which is always nerve-wracking. That's
for sure, yeah. It was an absolutely fantastic night. And, you know, we have to pay tribute to the guys that helped us make it all happen as well, too. In particular, you know, Donna Kelly, Terence Donnelly, and then Ivan Fisher, Rory Kennedy, and Gordy Noble, you know. Absolute legends of men, you know, that just made it all happen for us, really, you know. And then, you know, what can we say but Gerry McGarrity himself, the man, like as you said, his family, you know, that whole story then, you know, competing himself, you know, from sprints to, you know, helping guys compete in the WRC. It's an absolutely fascinating story. So let's hear from Gerry.
What can I say? Absolutely, yeah, blown away. I didn't think I knew as many people for a start. And I can see now why don't lock the gate. I'll be away. But anyway, it's a pleasure to be here, and I have to thank all you people for coming and turning up. I just can't believe. I can't believe that I know as many people for a start. But anyway, we'll give it a go and see.
And like Gerry, normally the first question I asked everybody is, like, what got you involved in motorsport? But I think you had no choice in the matter, really, had you?
I suppose we were always going to be involved in motorsport to some degree or other. I suppose we were brought up in a family that was steeped in motorsport, really. My father originated from Cash, in a house next door to the Mayfly. So there was 15 of them in Cash, 10 boys and 5 girls. And they left Cash and they moved to Belfast. Every one of them was involved in motorsport to some degree, mainly motorbike racing. There was maybe 4 or 5 of them racing bikes. My Uncle Patsy raced bikes. My Uncle Harold, Michael, Malcolm, they all raced. And then they graduated to cars. My father was powerboat champion. We were reared on the loch, racing boats every weekend. And there was 3 of them jockeys, so I suppose there was going to be a race of some kind.
Different kinds of horsepower.
Yeah. The only thing, no, my mother didn't race. That was the only thing. She made her races around the house, but that's about the height of it. So yeah, I suppose it was going to happen.
Yeah, and like you, just because of of the family name, did it make it difficult for you at the very start?
No, I wouldn't say it made it difficult. I suppose I was 3 doors down from Kahal Curley. Kahal Curley was the man back in the day whenever there was anybody racing or rallying to be done. But my father was racing boats in a big way. We were only nippers, but every weekend we were away racing. We were either going to County Down, or we were going to God knows where. We could have been in Cork. During the week we were testing, we were out every weekend. I used to do the test, and my father stayed in the water and made the adjustments to the boat, and I did the driving. And the reason for it was he trimmed the boat and set it up till it got to the point where it was basically ready to just go out of control with me. And then whenever he put his weight in, it was the perfect setup.
Yeah. And there was a story about something very liquid as well, part of the story.
Aye, well, as the thing went along and the thing got more serious, and it was becoming serious. Any race is serious about our house. So a lot of the boys were starting to, money was starting to creep in, and they were starting to tune engines and send engines away to get them tuned or whatever. And my father was a great man. I suppose we got a good education and probably a lot of common sense in trying to solve problems and not actually buying things, because there wasn't a big budget there to do anything. So the boys were getting engines done and getting more speed, and we were always at the front. You know, he would have been running in the top three all the time. So the boys were away, they were getting these engines done, and then whenever I would come home from school, there would always be a job for me to do before the weekend, before we go racing. So this week I came home, and the job was to go down to Harry Leonard's shop and get 2 bottles of Fairy Liquid, and get into the garage and get underneath the boat and take this Fairy Liquid and start to rub it into the bottom of the hull. And every evening I come home then, it was another bottle of Fairy Liquid, and I was rubbing it into the bottom of the hull, and I thought, what's this Fairy Liquid, what's this going to be about? Like? So eventually got her all rubbed in, got her dried. We went to the race at the weekend. The boys come out with their souped up engines. It used to be a mass start. The race was in a wee place called La Harry up in County Down. All the boats were lined up like a mass start, and they were ready to get nearly ready to go. And my father hung back, and we hadn't the boat in the water, and he says, no, I won't put her in yet, we'll wait another while. And then we waited another while, and then the boys were there, and they were getting revved up, and he said, no, we'll hang on another while, just let her sit a minute. And then the last minute we took her down, put her in the water, took her around, set her up at the mass start, and still penny hadn't dropped what this was all about. So the next thing, of course, the flag dropped, everybody took off. There was nothing on his suds, and he was halfway up. He was halfway up the lake before they got going. So,
Gerry learned his wines very quickly then, so.
Yeah, you know, he gave us a great education in terms of things to get, but it was always competitive. It was always, we were always looking for a bit more, and I suppose that got handed down till everything we done then. And
sure. Yeah. And you talked then about your uncles all moving to Belfast and all that. Like, that had a huge influence, not just on you, but in the Irish rallying as well, Irish road racing. Like, they spread their wings right across Ireland and across Europe as well.
Yeah, well, when they moved to Belfast, they all kind of got involved in the motor trade. My uncle Harold was involved in selling cars on the Crumlin Road, and he had a garage called Savoy Motors. The reason it was called Savoy Motors was there was Savoy Cinema was across the road, and they called it Savoy Motors. Probably were starting in business and probably were struggling and weren't doing, you know, any big flashy place, but people say, you know, that, oh, that's rallying stupid, or it's you know, it's a road to nowhere and it's a waste of money, but they actually probably expanded their business and their car trade from the racing, because they were going racing every weekend. My uncle Patsy was actually the only, I think he still is the only Irish champion on 2 wheels and 4, and everybody knew them from the racing, and then they eventually more of them started a race. Malcolm started a race, and they rode in all the road races. They rode in the Ulster Grand Prix, the Isle of Man. So it was fairly well known in the racing terms, you know.
Yeah, and them connections made. We'll talk a wee bit more about that in a few minutes. But another name you mentioned there earlier, Kahal Curley, the man that lived 2 doors up from you.
Yep.
Like as you say, he shaped a lot of your thoughts and what you wanted to do, because you seen what would have been world rally cars landing his door then at that time.
Well, Kahal was, you know, the thing about it is we everybody has got a certain sort of connection to motorsport, and you can see where it comes in a, you know, like a family thing where you had, you know, the Fishers, and we have another Fisher, and then we have another Fisher, and it was always going to be that, you know. But the Curley connection, there was no driving in Curley family, absolutely none.
Just the one.
Just the one, yeah. But he was ahead of his time. He was ahead of his time. He was, you know, whenever Curley arrived in the town, everybody was in the town. When Curley arrived in the town, everybody was mad in the town, because he was able to set the place on fire, like, you know.
And he still does that to this day.
Well, he can command a fair turn of phrase now whenever he lands.
And unfortunately, CB couldn't be here tonight. He really wanted to be here, but he sent a wee message of just, and Connor's going to play it here now.
Well, Gerry, great to be able to convey a message to you, coupled to an apology for not being there. I was invited, but unfortunately, I had an invite a couple of weeks before that to attend the UAC 100th anniversary dinner in the Culloden Hotel in Belfast. And sorry, I can't make it to join my fellow Urbanstown man. You've spent and devoted a lot of your time to rallying. You've kept a lot of guys on the road. You've kept a lot of engines going when other engines were stopping. And as an Urbanstown man, I'm equally proud of you and your achievements. I would just want to finalise it by saying, my mother, who lived next door to you in Urbanstown, always depended on you when her heating or her problems arose. She called on Gerry next door. And Gerry, you never, ever let her down. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kahal Curley.
Yeah, but Kahal was a great ambassador. He was a great ambassador in our town for you know, and like he competed in cars which weren't really that good at the start, but he had a bit of a charisma about him, and he also had a great turn of speed, because you know, we all can learn from other people, but Curley didn't learn from anybody, you know.
He set the trend.
He had it, yeah, and he believed in what he was doing, and you know, he was a good ambassador for the sport.
Yeah, and another man beside him then was Austin Fraser for a large part of that as well too. Another man very close to your heart as well.
Aye, Austin was a great man. Austin was the pharmacist in the hospital, and Austin was very professional about everything he went out to do. He was a great ambassador in the motor club. He just was a gentleman. And sometimes, you know, opposites attract, but he definitely kept CB on the right road. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, because like as you say, his professionalism, CB's natural talent, and they just were a sponsor's dream. When you think of like Checkered Flag, the Porsches, they had the best of the best in their day.
Oh, I had, yeah. I remember they had a wee shop, just, you know, in the front part of where they lived, and every car that Kahal drove, it would be there sitting outside the front of the shop whenever he would come up to see his mother. The Porsches, the Escorts, the Stratuses, everything, you name it, he was there. And when he was in town, everybody knew it, like, so.
So, things haven't changed at all.
No, the boys used to be slagging, you know, whenever he would arrive, and they used to say, lights, camera, action.
He was Hollywood before there was Hollywood.
He was, yeah. He was, yeah. He definitely was.
And then we talked a wee bit about, you know, the family connections. That really got you really going in rallying, like, cause, you know, the Savoy Motors turned into Harold McGarity Motors. No, Honda, again through the road racing, Honda was a name very familiar in two wheels, but then suddenly they wanted to look into the four-wheel drives. Four wheels.
Yeah. Well, my uncle Patsy and Harold and them, they were all involved in the motorbike racing, and then the boys used to come over to Ulster Grand Prix every year, and there used to come a lot of riders from across the way, and they got to be friends with a guy called Bill Smith, and Bill Smith was a big Honda dealer, and Bill Smith had the connection in Japan, and they became very friendly with him. He used to come every year to the Ulster Grand Prix, and he'd stay with them, and always had the best bikes and whatever. And then Bill Smith phoned Patsy one day, and he says, "Look, Honda's going to start making cars, and it mightn't be a good car to start with, but if they make a car as good as what they made a motorbike, it'll be a winner. And if you want, we'll get the agency for you." So they took the agency for Honda, and they brought them in. The first were 600s, and maybe it wasn't the best, but they got better. And then they made the Civic, and it became very reliable, and it turned out to be a winner. But that's how I come to be rallying a Honda, because I had escorts and things, minis before that, and then they decided they wanted to put a car in the Circuit of Ireland one year just to prove how reliable it was, and so they took a car out of the showroom, and we put a sump guard on it and put a roll cage on it and did the circuit and sold it when the circuit was over. It never missed a bat.
And that was just as simple as that. It was just to get the name out there.
Yeah.
And I suppose you might not be able to see this very well, but we'll put it up later on. This just shows the mark of how the esteem your uncles were held. And people, you want to explain this here to people here?
I will. They both raced. My uncle Patsy was the first one that raced Formula Ford when Formula Ford came into the country. I think he was maybe the first winner of the first Formula Ford championship. It was a very competitive championship. He moved on then to quicker cars, and then the Formula Atlantic Championship came out. He won the Formula Atlantic Championship, I think, 5 times. My uncle Harold was a winner in the Formula Atlantics. They won at Phoenix Park, they won at Mandello, they won at Kirkuson. And then whenever they decided they were going to retire, they brought Roger Clark and Jackie Stewart over to present them with their retirement prize. So.
Yeah, that just shows the esteem they were held in.
Yeah, well,
like Jackie Stewart at that stage was world champion. Roger Clark was like a megastar.
Yeah, he was the man in terms of Ford and rallying. So I suppose, it all. But a lot of it came from competition and racing and
making connections.
Making connections.
Yeah, and then another photo we have here too is Gerry's dad and the very first Formula 4 car to come to Ireland.
Yeah, that was at the Phoenix Park. My father didn't have any experience of racing cars at all, but my uncle Patsy went to Monza to race in the Grand Prix with the motorbikes, and he had put an entry in for the Phoenix Park. So he couldn't go, so he says to my father, "There's an entry in for Phoenix Park there, why don't you take that racing car and you do the race?" So there was no problem, we all headed off to Phoenix Park.
The whole family then?
Yeah, he did the race, and that was it. We were racing for the weekend.
Something that we'll touch on more as we go on. You had some great co-drivers over the years. We're going to talk to a few of them here now. We'll speak to Dan Hackett maybe first of all.
So Dan, you were sitting in the early days. Any recollections you can share with the audience?
Well, apart from being very narky at times, it was grand to sit with, but sometimes you'd get carried away with the people on the side of the stages, and you'd have to check him and tell him that he was driving, that he wasn't looking at the audience. But apart from that, he was a very good driver now, I have to say, if he had got the proper machinery to do that. But I have to say I enjoyed every run I had with him, and he was very good to the very end.
Excellent, Dan. Thank you very much there. I really appreciate your kind words there. Do you want to respond?
I know Dan was a great man. I met Dan through Terence Donnelly. Dan had sat with Terence whenever Terence was top of the wheel, and then we did a lot of rallies with John Scullin. John was going to Donegal one year and he got Dan Hackett to sit with him. And I got to know Dan then because George Elliott and myself were servicing for John then. And we became friends, and then whenever I was got the chance to go in the Honda in the circuit, I got Dan to come with me, and he was a great man.
Very good, very good. And then next now we're going to catch up with Victor Carruthers now as well. And Victor's been around a lot of corners, and I've asked him to try and keep it clean, but he hasn't made any promises now, in fairness, you know.
Well, you said I had some good co-drivers, and I also had some bad ones.
He's going to be given the mic here now. Victor, you want to respond to that?
Gerry is probably 50 years ago since I met Gerry.
You can't count, either.
Dan said he was a fairly good driver. I would add a wee bit to it. Gerry was an absolutely fantastic driver. Know him 50 years. Probably we never had a disagreement in our life.
Not to now.
He always wanted to drive. My first recollection of Gerry in a rally car, when I went to live in Irvinstown, there was this beautiful wee blue Mini with an orange roof sitting outside Fair Green Street, and I was a bit interested in cars at the time when I walked up, and that's when I met Gerry and realised it was Mervyn Johnson that had given that car to Gerry to go and race it in Mandela. Dan's the reason why I got the job in Navigate. When Dan was finished navigating with Gerry, myself, he said that I could go and navigate with him. And the first Donegal rally I ever done with Gerry, I don't even think I had an international licence.
Oh.
we had done 5 or 6 small rallies, and I don't think we'd got the signature, but it was on its way, so for that reason alone they let us go. Gerry, we done Donegal one year in particular, and we come in after the first day, and Gerry said he wasn't feeling well. And when he went to the toilet in the guest house that we used to always stay in, his pee was a funny colour.
That was a drink.
And it wasn't a drink. It was, Gerry had to be brought to Letterkenny Hospital. He had a stone in his kidney, and we thought that was the end of our rally. Myself and Bill Murphy, he's the guy that used to bring us everywhere and do everything for us. Went up to look about Gerry the next morning, and we near got chased out of Letterkenny General. But Gerry said, hold on, he was coming with us. He come on with us. We'd done the rally and finished the rally and won the class, as usual. Come home that night, and I went to see Gerry the Monday evening. Gerry wasn't there. He was in Dungannon Hospital, where he had stayed in it, I think, for a week or 2 weeks. Gerry's problem that weekend was he had a stone in his kidney. So he didn't want to give up on the driving just because of that.
That's not the right way of the story.
Go on then.
That's not the right way of the story.
It's near enough, Gerry.
You tell your version.
That was, I remember Victor was with me. Victor was only one way Victor went, and that was flat out. Everything was flat out. If the rally started at 9 o'clock, Victor was up at 5. And he was saying, you're going to lie there all day, you're not getting up. But I wasn't feeling well, and we did the first day. And I said, there's something wrong here, I'm not feeling well. It's the flu, it's what flu? The flu's gone about. Everybody has it, you're all right, keep going now, you're grand. The second day, I got up, and it was even worse. I couldn't get out of the car. I said, there's something wrong here. No, it's the flu, I'm telling you, it's the flu, it's going around. Everybody has it. I'm telling you, I was passing blood this morning. He said, no, it's a symptom of the flu. Go on ahead, you're all right. Keep going. Go on, we're going to be late here. Go on, keep going, you're grand. And then the next thing, we broke a brake disc. And Bill was with us from day one. Didn't matter what broke or what happened, Bill fixed it. Didn't matter what it was. So anyway, we broke the brake disc with only one brake on the front. Service into Killybegs. Bill says, if I had one of them 680 rods, I'd weld that disc back onto it again. I says, right, good enough. So we got into garage down in Killybegs somewhere. Apart from nearly setting fire to the garage because there was a pile of rags underneath the bench where he was welding it. We welded the disc back on again, put her back on, and it was well warped now. It wasn't good, but it was in place. So we got back out and got going with the disc. Kept going, and I was really struggling. Eventually, we decided we'd send somebody back home, get another disc. Got back into the finish, and I says, Victor, something wrong here. I'm not, no, you're grand, you'll be dead on, it's the flu, come on ahead, you're all right. So we're up to Park Ferm, we were in the field in Park Fermy, and of course he was busy looking and counting at times and getting times and asking this one and asking that one, and all I could see was the sky on the ground, and the next thing all I remember is just bang, it was gone. So the next thing I remember hearing him, and he was he was organising somebody to put me into the back of a van and then headed off looking for the hospital and had to kill me. So eventually found it, and they got me in. The pain was unbelievable, and got me in, and they figured out that I had a stone in my kidney, of course, morphine injection, and it was grand. When I got the morphine, it was okay. So the next thing, doctor was coming in the morning, they were going to take me down to theatre and do whatever they're going to do. Took the pain again in the middle of the night, another big germ of morphine, it was grand. Of course, he arrives in the next morning, tears into the ward. Hey, we're 3 minutes of leaving the class. Come on, we need to get out here. 11:03, we're due out, right? The next thing, the nurse comes in. Right, you, what are you doing in here? You should be in here, outside. No, I says, hang on, there's a wee bit of a problem at home. There's no problem at home, I know what's going on here. She says, out, whole area's out. I'm telling you now, out to the front door. It says to him, doctor's coming here now to see him. You shouldn't even be in here. Out you go. I says, listen, I'm going to have to go. You're going nowhere. I says, listen, I'm going to have to go because I says, things is not great. Well, I'll tell you something. You're not getting out of here. I says, well, if I sign something, can I get out of here? If you sign yourself out of here, you needn't bother coming back in. If something happens, I don't want to see you. See the bottom of the road down there? Don't even go past it. Don't even come down the road or up the road. Right, you're finished. I says, right, what am I going to do here? Get that suit on you and get out here. So we signed a bit of paper and he armed me out. Took me down, put me in the car. And we finished the rally, won the class, forgot all about it, and went to the prize giving and had a yodeling match about, got up home, went home, got up the next morning, went to work, got as far as the Balgolly roundabout, took it again in the middle of the roundabout, got me gathered up and took me into South Tyrone. Was there for 3 weeks actually. Yeah, it wasn't a week, Victor, it was 3 weeks.
Bad dose of the flu.
The flu! It was the flu.
And you told me a story about Victor. I think that was the first Donegal as well. And he was a bit unsure whether these other boys would know what they were doing, and he was a bit sort of shell-shocked.
The first rally Victor done, I was going to do Dava, and I had done a rally the night before with Godfrey Crawford, navigation rally. I was heading down the street and decided we were going to I had an entry in for to do Dava. So I had nobody to go with me, and he was always rally mad. He was standing at the front door of the flat, and he had his lunchbox under his arm. And I was going down the street, and I thought, who am I going to get to go with me? And the next thing I see him standing, so pulls up. I says, what are you doing? I'm going to be work. I says, do you want to do a rally? Hang on, to get rid of this lunchbox. Back in through the door. Don't even think he took it upstairs, he just threw it into the door. Away we went, we done Dava. We had a great run in Dava. So the next thing then was he was going to go and do Donegal, so we done a couple of wee rallies. But anyway, we went Donegal, and it was a real panic station. In case you get the timing wrong, in case you'd be late, in case whatever. So anyway, we went out to the start of the first stage. And it was out the road heading for the mountain. That stage up to the left that started off the road out past
Carnhill or something.
Carnhill, yeah, that was the stage. So there was a big queue of cars there, and the next thing, out of the car, up the road, up to the car in front, up to the car in front of that, up to the car in front of that. He was way up nearly at the start of the stage. The next thing I see him coming running back down again. He says, I says, well, what's wrong? Well, I'll tell you something. He says, there's no them boys can count any better than me.
So you were set for the weekend.
That was it. So that was the
start of a friendship.
The start of his rally career.
And that was the Civic. It was such a good car. You could do 3 events in the one weekend.
I did do 3 events in one weekend, and I did a bit of everything in it. We done Donegal. I think maybe we won the class maybe 4 years in the trot in Donegal. It was a competitive week car, but the reason probably was I was getting seat time all the time. I was racing, I was doing hill climbs, I was doing sprints, I was doing rallies. We were doing everything, and if you get enough seat time, it's like anything. You get to be part of the thing, and the only thing that was real good about it was reliable. The engine was bomb-proof.
Yeah.
If it started at all, it kept going.
Yeah.
And I did, one weekend I did 3 events, and I did Northern Ireland Navigation Championship Rally on a Friday night, which was 160 or 180 miles, started in Enniskillen, finished at the Manor House, got the breakfast in the Manor, headed for Milford, done the hills of Donegal, came home from the hills of Donegal, pulled the sump yard off, put a set of brake pads in her, and drove on to Mandela. I had her in the front row of the grid at Mandela on Sunday, and they were home Sunday evening.
Simple.
Yeah.
Well, that wouldn't have been the weekend when you were in the front row in Mandela that the brake lights seemed to stop working. I've heard stories.
I can't believe it. First of all, I have to say just a million thanks to all the people that have come. There's so many people that have... I just can't believe the amount of people that have come. Like, whenever you asked me to do this here, I sort of thought, nah, but, I don't want to be doing that. I can do it for somebody else. I can talk about somebody else. I can slag somebody else, but no, I can't do it for myself.
Well, they're all getting the revenge on you tonight.
And anyway, I thought, well, you know what? If I do it, who's going to come? Nobody's going to come.
All these people?
Nobody's going to come. And I just, but anyway, I have to say, there's one man, and just when we talk about that there, he's a man called Eddie Fitzgerald. And Eddie Fitzgerald was a man I met a long, long time ago. Whenever I was racing at Mandela, when I used to race escorts, I used to go to Mandela, and he used to be the clerk of the course, and he used to be the main man, and he was Mandela. And I remember Eddie didn't let you away with anything. Eddie kept his eye on everything, and Eddie knew what was going on. But I remember going, just when you talk about, I remember going to Mandela one day, and we were sitting in the queue waiting to go out on pit road, and I was watching. There was a race on; it was just finishing, and everybody were just going down the straight. We're going past, going into the hairpin, and the next thing, the brake lights would come on, and then the man behind it brake, and the brake lights come on, and then the next bit brake, and the brake lights come on. And I was sitting there thinking, and I was a bit under pressure because there wasn't a lot between me staying where I was at the front and getting beat. And I thought, I wonder what would happen if
your brake lights
didn't work. I just think, how long would it be before the next guy would try going, shit, because, they would just use you as a marker, right? And I thought, you know what? There's one chance here is at the start, because there was a big grid of cars, so I thought, I can't open the door, because Eddie was walking about and he was watching. We were ready to go as soon as the race was finished, so I knew the brake light switch was down in here, just underneath the steering column, so I put down my hand and feel the wires and just pulled one of the wires off. So out we went on the warm-up lap, into the grid, lined up, bang, flag drop, away we go. And I went as deep as I could into the hairpin before I braked. And the next thing, pouring, I thought, I need to get the boot down here. Looked in the mirror, and it was just like Skittles. They were going everywhere. I I need a nailer here now. And I kept going. I never drove as hard, I would say, from the day I went to Mandalo. I was really wrapped up in it, and I kept locking the mirror, and they weren't catching. I remember coming in, and the race was over, and here was Eddie standing in the pit lane, and not often he would be there, but he was there, and he was standing watching. The next thing, he goes, "Stop." He had me sitting there, and the sweat was running off me, and I was all chuffed with myself. And I was thinking, I wonder what he wants, and he was waiting on somebody else. And I thought, oh shit, the brake lights. And I thought, I can't open the door because he's gonna see me. So I was trying to get down. I could feel the brake, I could feel the wire, and I couldn't get it back onto the switch. And the next thing, the door opened. He says, never, as long as you live, pull a stunt like that again. I says, what?
We might get Eddie's side of the story here now, won't we?
He gave me such a ball.
Eddie, do you care to respond?
Yes, he's telling a very honest account. The one thing he hasn't said is that it was lashing rain. So the advantage of knowing that your brake lights weren't working was a plus on all the cars behind you. So we shook on it, and we've been mates and friends ever since. And I regularly get phone calls from Gerry, and it's always a friendly phone call. And I hope we come back to another story that I haven't made you aware of later in his racing career, where he also pushed the envelope. We'll come back to that later, okay?
Come on it now, sure.
Well, I can give it to you now.
Must have been a Christmas card.
No, Gerry, no. You told me the story. I wasn't aware of it, even though I might have been the clerk of the course in the park. You told me what you did when the production saloon car race, the mechanics ran across to the car with the keys. Now, it's up to you.
Well, Victor was to blame for this as well.
It's always Victor.
Yeah. I raced at the Phoenix Park. Phoenix Park was a big thing, and I have to say, Eddie from the first day I went to Mandela, he was such an honest man. You didn't mess with him, but he was a really honest man. And we went to the Phoenix Park, and I was after doing the Ulster Rally the weekend before. Mm-hmm. So just some card off, and away we goes down to Phoenix Park. Phoenix Park was a big weekend, big race, and all the production saloons. So somebody came up with the idea that they were going to line all the cars up do a Le Mans start. So they were at 45 degrees to the side of the track, and then the drivers would get out and they would line up like Le Mans, and then they would run across and get into the car and put on their belts and take off. So Eddie sort of had to think about it, I think, and said, no, the boys will get in, they'll drive off, and they'll not put the belts on. So what we'll do is, we'll line them all up, and we'll let them sit in the car with their belts on, and we'll take the keys out, right? And we'll get a mechanic, and the mechanic will line up on the far side of the track. And then when the flag drops, the mechanic will run across with the key, hand the key to the driver, and they'll put the key in, and they'll start, and then they'll drive off, and it'll make it safer. So I says to Victor, right, you're going to run across with the key. And I says, you know what? Do you remember last weekend at the rally, we got a second key cut for opening the fuel cap? He says, I says, we have this here. I says, we don't need the key. I says, all you have to do is stand on the far side of the road. I've got the spare key. And you run across the track. He says, no, I'm warning you. You wait till I get over.
Don't start without me.
Don't you start till I get across. I'm warning you. He says, you wouldn't do it, would you? So lined up anyway, and I could see him, and he was, well, I won't. And I said, come on.
Run.
And he started to run. He ran halfway across, and he turned and ran back. I put the key in. and hit her almost halfway down. Was looking back.
Them Hondas way ahead of the time. Keyless
Well, it started if you only looked at them.
keyless ignition before its time.
At least I admitted Eddie.
Eddie, is that the story you were thinking of, or was there another one? And then another man too that you enjoyed great success with, Derek Irvin as well too. You claimed the title in 1981, the Northern Ireland Championship.
Yeah, Derek was a great co-driver. He was a great man.
He's going to say a few words here now, and he'll see what he thinks of you.
It was. I know what he thinks of me. He told me. He told me the last night we done a rally. We had back then. It was great racing. It was great competition. We had Kevin O'Kane and Godfrey Crawford, and we had Kenny Colbert. It was 180 mile of a stage. There was maybe only half a dozen guys that could read the maps for you to go at that kind of speed. It was like just a stage, complete flat out. And Derek was one of those people. We hadn't rallied together, and he came. It was Bill Adair actually, but
he was the one to blame.
He was the one to blame. He put me in touch with him when I was looking for somebody to go, and it was serious hot competition. But anyway, he whenever we finished the year and we'd won the championship and we'd done another rally, and it was pretty hot going. It was flat to the mat, and no headlights or no spotlights and
no brake lights.
No brake lights. And the next thing, he got out this night anyway. We had a big run with O'Kane, 290, and I think there was maybe 13 seconds between us, and there was nothing left in it. Absolutely nothing left in it. And I was fuming, and he was trying to tell me that, slow down a bit, it's not worth this here. So when we got to the finish, and he says, I says, right, Derek, I'll see you then. You will not, he says. I says, what do you mean? No. He says, no, I'm not. I says, wait, what's wrong? He says, I have a wife and child at home. It's obvious to me you have nobody belonging to you. He says, I'll be back.
So, Derek,
I can stand
hot and
over
heavy
that.
times?
I can stand over that, that's true. But Gerry, it's quite noticeable who's sitting behind me tonight in their rightful position. Godfrey and Kevin O'Kane.
Oh, yeah.
They were always behind us.
Keep them back there.
Keep them there.
Yeah. As Gerry said, the stage events or the navigation events in those days really were like a 140-mile stage. The 81 championship that we did, it was the year that they decided to introduce a 1300 class. And it would be equal points for winning either overall, or if you won the 1300 class, you would get your points. And whoever had the most points, 6 or 7 rounds, best 6 rounds, you were going to be the winner. So I got the phone call, and I thought, fair enough. And to be honest, I knew Gerry, but I'd never sat with him, and knew he was a fair pilot. And I'll go back 1 week prior to that. I was doing the Galway rally in a DTV drive with a guy from England, and I should have known better because I wasn't meant to be doing it. Peter Scott was meant to be doing it, and for some reason he decided he wasn't going to do it. I got a phone call and meet this guy, Bob Grant. Long story short, coming off the corkscrew at about close to flat out, this thing went sideways and barrel rolled and was demolished. It was the biggest accident I had. So moved forward the next week, and we started off, and it was Maiden City Rally. And I hadn't really recovered from the accident, and it was a big accident. The car was a total write-off. In fact, Desi McCartney didn't even recognise what type of car it was. But about 3 or 4 miles into the event, we went over a hump, and the wee Civic went sideways, and I immediately thought, family, wife, here we go again. But at that moment, I actually think I let out a bit of a yelp, because I did think this, here we go again. Gerry gathered it all together, and I said to myself, we're okay with this guy. The rest of the championship, as I say, there was 7 rounds. I think we finished sort of second in 3 of them. And we actually finished second overall. And I can remember one night coming down Gorton Glen direction, and Gerry was giving it death down the hill, and there was a police Land Rover parked up in the side, and all of a sudden down through the gear, slow down, back down, and away we go. And we went into the petrol station, and in comes the police Land Rover. The policeman comes over. I was expecting to get the riot act. He said, "Next time you see us out watching, don't slow down, keep her going." And that's the way it was in those days. There really were, sort of, as Gerry said, 140-mile special stage. But what I would say as a co-driver, Gerry listened to what you said. And I think towards the end, where we did finish second overall in the last 3 events, I don't think we overshot a single junction on those 3 events, which, okay, it's down to navigate, but comes down to the driver as well, where we work together as a team. And unfortunately, I think the very last event, which was on my home territory of Mid-Antrim, I think we retired, and I think it was the first time that we car had broken down in about 80 events. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
But he was a talented driver. I remember he used to call it Maggie Thatcher racing, because, you know, without sponsorship and one thing and another, it was difficult times. And I can honestly say, if Gerry had had full backing and sitting in the cars that many of the guys had, he would have beaten any of them. Safe pair of hands to sit beside, and a very enjoyable year.
That's lovely words there.
Halfway through that year, we started the championship, and I finished. We should have won the 3 of them, I thought. And Derek, just maybe we just weren't on it. So many things were happening, you know. I remember halfway through the year, and I said to Derek, you know, it took us a while to get going there. I said, I think we could have won them ones at the start, you know. I says, maybe you weren't. He says, no, to be quite honest, I thought every night we were going to crash. But we didn't.
No, you kept it on the road.
No, we didn't. Yeah. And I have to say, Derek was a gentleman.
Yeah. Oh, it's so obvious here tonight then. And he's here with his wife as well.
Yeah.
At that stage then, you were starting to turn your hand to a wee bit of prep work as well too. And one of those guys that was been Kevin McCain, he got on board and you started running the car for him. Sunbeam was the first time you got going together.
Sunbeam, yeah. He was racing the Sunbeam when I was in Honda. And the Sunbeam was, he had kind of stopped rallying then, but I have to say Godfrey was a great competitor as well. He really was. If Godfrey couldn't beat you one way, he'd beat you another way. I remember one night we'd finished a rally somewhere. I think maybe it was in Dungannon or whatever, and there was an argument about a time control or about a passage control or whatever. And I remember Derek saying to me, and we were 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were arguing, and Godfrey was arguing a bit out. And Derek just says to me, he says, you know, Godfrey's wrong here. He says, because look, we're not getting home here. We're going to have to stay here because he's not backing down. And I remember going over to Godfrey, and I says, Godfrey, do you not think maybe you're wrong here? I know I'm wrong. He says, well, I can't back down now.
Come so far, you couldn't stop.
But that was Godfrey. He was a fierce competitor, and he still is. He still is.
Godfrey, maybe you'd like to respond to that, would you? We'll get the mic here to you. He's sitting there very sheepish now.
He's not much of a sheep in him now. Don't worry.
I was going to say nice things about Gerry, but I've changed my mind now.
You done that a long time ago.
The first time I met Gerry was back in the early 70s. He did the Skellin Cup Rally in his wee Mini, and the one thing that impressed me was that both Gerry and the Mini were always turned out immaculately. He must have spent all day polishing his car before events. But the first rally I did with Gerry was in the yellow Escort, the RS 2000. And we did quite a few rallies in that car, Gerry, if I remember. And I think we actually won the Enniskillen Championship driver and navigator that time. And I did quite a few rallies with him in the Honda Civic. And he was recalling there the event that Derek in front of me here said he wouldn't go again with him because he had a wife and child at home. That rally started and finished in Irvinstown, Gerry's
Good man, Joe.
Gerry's hometown. And I'm not going to tell you who eventually won the rally, Gerry will. But the week before, him and Victor Carruthers arrived up at Kevin's house one night and proceeded to tell us that they'd been spent the last fortnight making pace notes.
Oh, yeah.
And the
I
navigation
thought
rally,
you were good living.
and how much they were going to beat us by. And on the way down to the rally, Kevin says to me, he says, we can't let that wee so-and-so beat us tonight. So it was probably one of the fastest nights I ever had in a navigation rally. It wasn't 10 tenths, it was about 20 tenths. In fact, it was so fast that both of us caught and passed the clerk of the course who was running around in front of us. And there was a private lane, and we arrived up, we were running number 1, and we arrived up at the gate, and we tried to open it, and it was locked. And Gerry should have been a minute behind us, but about 10 minutes later we arrived.
Can't count, there, Joe. You can't count.
I had to get my own back one week.
Yeah, you can't count. Yeah. He counts with bricks. You know?
No, it was about a minute behind us, and but we had to turn around, and both of us we actually had to go into we're close to the petrol halt. And the clerk of the course came to us afterwards and says, look, that section's going to be cancelled. So there was very little in it that night, and I have to say we were in the Sunbeam, which would have been a quicker car, and only Kevin was driving the life out of it. Gerry would have beaten us. And I have great respect for him as a driver. He's one of the greatest drivers I ever sat with. So neat, so precise, so tidy. And as Derek said, if somebody had to give Gerry a BDA back in those days, I don't know where he would have ended up, but he just was such a neat driver, and it shows up in the hill climbs and sprints he does now. He's inch perfect everywhere he goes, and I enjoyed every rally I did with him, and even though he slags me off, I still have great respect for him.
I remember doing a rally with him one night in Enniskillen, and we were in RS 2000, and we were going pretty good. And it was a way out round Ballinalek, big, fast, sweepy corners. But the next thing, we were coming around this corner and everything was flat with Joe. Like, the only thing that wasn't flat was a stop sign. I remember setting her up for this corner, and the next thing, just as it was drifting, I was looking out the side window here, and the next thing there was a Mini sitting just on the side of the road, just parked on the road. There was a crowd of people back down the road. And they must have decided this was a good place to watch. And I thought, I'm going to hit him on the door. I'm going to hit this Mini on the door. And I just had to come off, straighten her up. And the only way I could get out of it was just to hit her square on. And I hit her just behind the petrol tank, and I put it in between the two front seats. And I got out, and it was absolutely, it was blue flames coming out of me. And Godfrey had lost his glasses and he was just sitting there. And I remember getting out, and it was a nice crisp night, and I remember shouting down the road, who owns this Mini? This boy says back up, me mother. Oh no. Oops, me mother. It was a sore night, but anyway, it didn't put Godfrey off.
No, nor you.
No.
And we'll skip forward now a few years, and like you say, you're on Kevin McCain for a good few years, starting off building the Sunbeam, prepping the Sunbeam, and then going right up through like Group A cars into World cars then as well.
Well, I have to say, we did a lot of rallies with Kevin. Kevin was a great driver, great forest driver. Did a lot of gravel rallies down south with him. Won quite a few rallies with him in the Sunbeam. And then eventually one day we had a problem with the Sunbeam. It was a very special engine, and it was a BRM, which Noel Alexander and them had built. So bitch was getting hard to get for it, and he just says, the day of the two-wheel drive car's over and we need to go four-wheel drive and whatever. So he bought an Escort Cosworth. It was probably one of the first Escort Cosworths. And then we continued with the gravel rallies. And we ended up winning the Forestry Championship, the Southern Forestry
A couple of times, didn't you?
A couple of times, yeah. He was good. He was good. Kevin was good. Kevin was a great man, great competitor, and he was a great friend, you know. I remember one night we were going, there was always some great dry wit, you know, there was always a bit of crack. I did the driving to the rally and Kevin used to sit in the back. And I remember one day we brought somebody with us, some young boy with us to give us a hand. The next thing Kevin gets into the back of the van. And he says to Cub, he says, come on you in, sir, behind me here. He says, and you'll not see what you're going to hit. So we headed off down the road anyway, and we were flying. We were going to Burr, and the next thing, trailer was starting. I says, boys, it's getting very windy. It's very windy. The wind's getting up, boys. And of course, flat out, whatever speed you done, we were doing.
And a wee bit more.
Everywhere, aye, yeah, flat out, and the wind was getting worse. So eventually got to Burr. It was dark evening. Jumped out, went to get the car off the trailer, and the next thing he was round looking to get straps off. He says, "Come on round here, sir. Do you see where the wind come out of?" I says, "What do you mean?" He says, "Come here, do you see where the wind come out of? Look at that trailer." There was no wheel on the trailer.
Oh, Jesus.
And he stood and he looked at it and he says, "That's where the wind come out of, sir." I says, "I wonder where it is." He says, "I'll tell you where it is. It's probably stuck on some man's television."
Some man trying to watch a late show or something.
But no, we had some great times, and we had a lot of great rallies. Yeah.
And another man then that come to Harry Cathcart. Harry wanted to get a bit of he was sort of maybe lost his a wee bit of appeal for rallying. He wanted to get back to basics and start to enjoy his rallying again.
Yeah, I suppose he wanted something that was going to stay going. Harry didn't want. Harry was a great man. He was just a great character. And my uncle Patsy was involved in the Honda dealership with my uncle Harold. And again, it came about through the racing. He was buddies with a great motorbike racer called Percy Tate. He had a big connection with Suzuki. And he rang him one day and says, "Hey, Suzuki's going to start making cars. I can get you the agency if you want to take it." So he took the Suzuki dealership. And then the first Suzuki GTAs come out, and then Harry says, "I need to get a car to replace some of these things. I want something that can go across and maybe do some proper rallies." And I says, "Well, they're going to bring out a Suzuki GTA 16 valve 1300. That'll be ideal car." So he went up and he bought a brand new one from my uncle Patsy. My uncle Patsy says he didn't buy it, he stole it. Harry was a typical
Fermanagh man.
Harry liked a good deal. But anyway, we got it, and we got a cage for it, and we made some guard for it, and we got suspension done for it, and Harry started to do the British Championship, and Harry was winning hand over fist because the car was so reliable and it was good. And then it sort of led to more Suzukis.
Yeah.
And
they were huge at the time. There was probably 12 or 15 of them about it.
There was maybe 20 of them.
Yeah.
And they were reliable, and it was nearly like a one-make championship where, you know, you'd have went to Donegal, there'd have been maybe 10 in the class, and then John McGlinchey came along. John was very quick, and then John McGlinchey ended up winning the national championship in it, and Victor was co-driving with him. John was very competitive, but the car was good. But Harry was a great competitor and a great character, and he'd get a few McGarrys in whenever the rally would be over and the crack would be good. And which is missing from a lot of the rallies now. You know, I remember us being in the pub one evening after the rally was over, and Harry was out and he had hit something or other, and some of the boys says to him, "Well, Harry, were you going hard whenever you hit that?" "Jesus, what'll I tell you?" That's how hard I was going. He says, "We hit the bank there," he says, "and the headlight flew out of her, and there was a crowd of boys 100 yards up the road, and the headlight went past them and it was still lit."
Not bad.
He was definitely going.
He was. But like, you know, Harry brought like, you know, like BRC titles and tarmac championship. Like that, just with the mark you said, reliability, but speed as well.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and, and he was a great man, and you know, he was so laid back, and he was
for sure.
He was a great competitor.
Yeah, and you talked about like it was almost like a one-leg championship, and that kind of led on the man, you know, that's kind of like probably sort of looking over us now tonight, Mark Fisher. Like Mark was come to you, he wanted to go rallying. He started off in the Suzuki Swift, but then it was they, and the prize was the one-make championship.
Aye, well, he started off in the Suzuki Swift, and Mark was, I suppose, Mark was a very clever boy, and Mark had a bit of everything. You know, he had a good education. He was able to work. He was able to weld. He was able to make things. He had a wee bit of everything, and he wanted a car that his father didn't know anything about because he didn't want him going rallying. He needed to finish his university or whatever, so we got a car that Harry was using, and then it was Harry's car, you see, so he was able to come out and do wee bits and pieces on her and on the QT, and it all worked out great for a while, and then eventually the car had to go. But he come back then, we got another Suzuki, and he went across the water and he started doing those BDRDA championship rallies, and started to have a fairly good go at it, but then he left and went to Canada for a year or two, and then he just dropped off the radar. But then whenever he come back again, then he decided he was going to go out in the Micra. So he went to Micra, one makes championship. And I got involved then with him and running the Micra, and we were doing a lot of rallies across the way, and it was a great experience because we were getting out and doing rallies, whatever, but it also opened a lot of doors for other things. So, plus he wasn't far away, and he was with me every evening and wanted to do this and wanted to do that. Niall McShea came along. McShea was part of that micro championship at the start. Stevie Whitford was in that micro championship. We had a great selection of real good drivers.
Yeah, because that was like, it was a UK-wide thing, but there was 3 drivers from here taking part, and not only taking part, but doing a lot of the one, and maybe we'll catch a quick word there with Stevie there as well too. Stevie's here. Connor will just get the mic to him. We can find him here.
Weavy, where are you?
Oh, down the back, hiding as always. Not like Weavy to be so quiet, is it? You know.
No, I'd be very afraid.
Buckle up.
I'd be very afraid.
Yeah. Weavy, you might stand up there so we can see you better.
That's me here, so I'll sit back down.
Weavy, like you have great memories of your time between racing with Mark and Niall and this man here in the background.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I met Gerry was 96, I think, whenever he was looking after Mark in the micros, and that was fine, but didn't really know him that well. It was just this sort of crabbed wee man in the background, you know, giving Mark a hard time, you know, and that led on. Then we went a couple of years later, and we started in the SEAT Championship, and Gerry was still looking after the car for Mark, and we went to the first round, and the rules were that these cars were standard, basically standard cars, supplied to the 6 drivers, all identical, and the rules were you weren't allowed to touch the car. So that was fine. We'll go to the first rally, no bother. I was 2 mile into the first stage, bang, drive shaft snaps. So that was me out, that was fine. But in those days there was no super rally, there was no chance to join in, and that's okay. So the next week I was friendly with Mark. At that time he was living in Belfast. We would have met up most weeks. And Mark says to me, he says, you know, Joe, he says, I think Gerry done something to my car. He says, maybe give him a ring there. And I thought, oh jeez, I have to phone this wee man. So I phoned Gerry anyway, and Gerry says, look, there's a problem, them engine mounts are crap. He says, come on up here. So I went up to Irvinstown. Gerry met me. He made me a set of engine mounts. That was fine. Give me the engine mounts. Never charged me anything. Says, away you go. But say nothing. I think Trevor News here somewhere, and the rules were, Trevor, you can back me up, that you weren't allowed to modify the cars. So I was thinking, I'm not going to modify the car, you know. But of course, Gerry, you've heard it all, the experience he had at that time. He was so ahead of the game, the brake light switch, whatever. He had the engine mounts which started breaking the drive shafts, and he made me a set, and I thought, you know, at that time, me and Mark were big rivals, and that was a nice touch from Gerry, you know.
Yeah, Gerry, like it didn't matter, like off the stages, you're going to help any man out.
No, well, the one make championship. The reason for the one make championship is if everything's equal and everything's the same, then you have to drive, and the best driver should win, right? The other thing is if all the cars are the same and all the drivers are as good as each other, then you're going to learn how to drive pretty quick, or you're going to the back of the grid. So it was a way to move forward quickly, and make your game, make your mark quicker. Yep. But in terms of, it didn't matter where we raced really, and I'm not saying this because I think, oh no, I want to be the big fella. It wasn't. Stevie was a great lad. He was a great driver. He was a great competitor, and he was a great friend. And of course, it would help him. And there was loads of other people, and we did the same. So if we're all equal and the thing's going to work, then best driver wins.
For sure, yeah. Uh-huh. And the other man that's here made the journey all the way from England, Trevor Agnew, was the guy that looked after that championship. And I'm sure Trevor has a story or two. Maybe not be able to tell them all, but you can tell one anyway, at least, I would think. Trevor, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah. Mike Garton was our scrutineer for the championship. And Mike said, what are we going to arrive with this time? It was always your car. So we will remember this. First rally, I think there was no door mirrors on it. Second rally, there was no protection underneath it. So always just pushing that competitive thing, trying to get the last little bit out of it. But yeah, that's fair, you know, and they did it every rally.
You didn't break the rules. You may have just twisted them a wee bit.
No, well, sometimes we forgot things. But Trevor was a great man. He was a great organizer, a great competitor, a great co-driver, and a very fair man.
Yeah, I could play the straight ball.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and that's all you can ask for, like in.
Absolutely, yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, but Stevie's engine mounting, we could see that there was too much standard parts on the car, and because it had been operated and it was being used pretty aggressively, the engine mountings were too soft. So what we did was we saw what the problem was going to be, and I said, this is not going to work. We need to make. So we took the engine mounting. It was like a rubber engine mounting. There was a guy who used to make wheels for forklifts, plastic wheels. So I took it down to him, and I had done a bit of rallying with him, and I says, look, I need you to mold me some of your plastic and make a hard shore in black, same as that engine mounting, and it was rock solid. So we didn't have a drive shaft problem. So Mark says to me, he says, help Weavy and sort them out.
You think Weavy would be a bit rough on them and he would break them? Is that what?
No. When push would come to shove, Weavy would help us too.
He wasn't a bad egg.
The only thing about it is I brought him up because he used to do a bit of mapping as well. And whenever I was running Sam Moffat or whatever, and we were going to Galway, I brought him up, and sometimes he would take it really serious, and sometimes he wouldn't take it serious at all. But he come up anyway to map the engine, but it wasn't Weavy's fault. There was a problem in the wire loom in the car, so he got in and we started the map, and we went out the road. But only went maybe a mile out the road, and the next thing you're all clicked up and whatever. And it was maybe 2 days before Galway, and I give her a run. The next thing, what's that? Don't know. Next thing she was off as under. I thought, oh shit, this thing's done for a piston. No, well, what do I do? I come back in, and I was devastated. Like I had 3 cars going to Galway, and here's one now with an engine problem. And he just pulled out the wires and he just locked her up and smelling from ear to ear. I says, Weavy, what am I going to do? He says, phone the police. Well, the police knew nothing about a Mitsubishi.
They wouldn't be much good to fix an evil ride, would they?
Phone the police. But anyway, it turned out he was a great competitor and a very quick driver.
That's for sure.
Yep.
Look at the way, like, you know, even to this day, he's held in such high regard.
Oh, maybe. No, he is. Yes, he is.
Yeah, for sure. And like another man too that was about a lot at that time, you know, Rory Kennedy was part of the Fisher family as well. It's this young boy is still, you know.
I have it in for him.
But
no, Mark Fisher always said, and it was early on whenever he said it, he says, there's two special co-drivers in this country. One's Rory Kennedy and the other's Gordie Noble.
Aye, two absolute legends of the sport to this day.
Yeah.
For sure. And we might even grab a wee quick word here with Rory.
Yeah.
Oh, Rory, you're over here hiding. Rory, like Mark and Gerry, what a team they were.
Well, Kevin, there was no better combination when you got Gerry and Mark together, because if there's ever an issue or never a problem, Mark always found a way around it. And as Gerry used to say, he would always look for an angle and some way around that. But it's interesting, Gerry, you tell that story about the Super 6 and Trevor and Weavy there made their contribution to that. But I happened to be in your garage one night with Mark one time, and the Seat had just arrived, you know, and these cars came in full rally kit, they were ready to go and so on. But I walked into the garage and Gerry had the car completely stripped to a bare shell. And this is maybe 2 weeks before the first event. And I looked at Gerry, I says, geez, what's the story here? And he says, geez, he says, we'd be very naive if you think we'd accept the way them boys build them cars.
You were taking no chances, Gerry.
Well, how do I get a good look at her?
And Rory, even before, it was the Micra and the RAC Rally, and that was some expedition you had.
We had a huge adventure. Mark and me did the RAC, and Gerry and I think Bertie and Keir McAnallen were with us on that event as well. They were sort of supporting us in some way. But I think you remember, Gerry, it was very, very snowy rally. And on the first stage, I think we passed about 8 cars, Mark and me, in the wee Micra. And this continued through a good few stages, and eventually we ended up off the road. But true to form, we got our dug out and kept going. But one of the biggest problems we had was it was only one-wheel drive, I think. And we kept saying to Gerry, we'll have to do something about this. So with the first long service we had at the end of the day, Gerry had managed to get a diff from somebody, and sure enough, there at the end of that leg, he put a diff in her and gave us 2-wheel drive for the rest of the rally. So we had a brilliant result. That was the year Colin McRae won the World Rally Championship on that same event. But it was a huge challenge, and true to form, Mark got the car around in one piece, and we had some brilliant adventures, Gerry, back in the day in all them rallies.
Gerry, yes, were a wee bit adventures getting the diff as well too. It wasn't just a straightforward find it in the back of the van. It was pull it out of a van.
No, funny, that was the first year that we had went and done Rally GP, and we were getting ready, and Mark says, right, what do you think we're gonna need? Everything we think that we're gonna need, we need to get ourselves gathered up. We can't go over here and not finish this rally. He says, what's the worst thing can happen? I says, well, usually always when you think of Rally GB, it snows. Right. Right, okay, we're going to use a high-ace fan. We're going to service it at a high-ace fan. I says, well, if it snows, we'll not be going anywhere in a high-ace fan. No, you're right. He says, I was up in Code the other day, and this wee man had a set of chains hanging up in the shade. I was making a wee milk stand for him. He says, we'll go up and we'll see if he'll lend us the chains. So up he goes and gets the chains, just in case it snowed. Anyway, we got everything gathered up, got the car ready, headed off, got off the boat, and sure enough, just looked like it was going to snow. And that was the year that it did snow.
And snowed properly, yeah?
Snowed properly, yeah. And we were the only ones who were at the end of every stage. I was the only high-ace fan on the fast lane of the motorway. And nobody passed me because I couldn't see was the sparks to come out of the chain.
There's always a story.
We pulled into the service. It was going nowhere in the snow. So I got my hands on the diff. We pulled the gearbox out of her, we split her. It was like -7. Gearbox out, down on the ground, diff into her, back in. I think we had an hour and a bit of a service back into her, and I think they were passing cars like they were going out of fashion the next day.
You're not going to tell us where you got the death?
Oh, it was, somebody had one. Anyway, we got the job done, and every day it was, you know, there was always a lot of thinking done. There was always a lot of angles to be covered. You know, Mark wasn't. Everybody that starts driving, everybody starts rallying. Everybody comes with a certain amount of talent. Everybody comes with a certain amount of know-how. Mark come with an average amount of driving ability, but he made himself what he was because he never stopped. Weavy and Niall McShay probably had more natural ability, but Mark wanted it more than anybody else.
He wanted it.
He wanted it, yeah. And eventually, he was quicker than everybody else.
Because he
never
drove
stopped
himself
working on it.
yeah.
Yeah,
And it was always pushing.
Yeah. It was always more. There was always more, and there was always more.
Yeah, and he found it, and with your help too, because
and he wanted it.
Because you and both of you wanted it as much. Like it meant as much to you as it meant to him.
Oh, absolutely! It was all about winning.
Yeah.
It's all about winning. It's still about winning. That's why, you know, Godfrey will not come out and race a mini or a sprint.
He's scared of you.
He knows, right? He's not going to win. But there were so many things came from it. There was a spin-off of so many things from it, because I remember one day, and he was always thinking, always, you know, what do we do with this? What do we do with that? How would we do this? How would we do that? And he was never one that, you know, Weavy would have beat us, right? McShay would have beat us, but he never would say, oh, that Weavy's a so and so, I'd love to beat him. You know, it was always.
He figured out why he beat him.
No. He was
thinking about it.
Yeah,
all
he
the
was
time.
thinking about it.
Yeah.
You know, how can they do that? And I just haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah.
And I remember he came over to the garage one day, and there was a wee calling card sitting on the bench, and it said micro cams. And he says, "What's this here?" I says, "There's a boy who was in. I haven't seen him in a long time. A boy, Charlie McGuckin. He used to do a bit of rallying, and got to know him. He made fiberglass bits or whatever." He says, "What's this here?" I says, "He was going down to a pub down at the bottom of the town where they had a bit of a problem with maybe a till not working and maybe all the money not getting into the till." So he thought about it for a minute, and he said, "This, what kind of a camera is it?" He says, "It's a wee small camera, miniature camera that he can mount." He says, "You know the way I come back here and I tell you about doing this and this is not working, and I'm trying to explain to you what's going on." He says, "Supposing we have one of them cameras and had it in the car," he says, "I wouldn't have to tell you anything. I could show you the footage from the camera. Wouldn't that be some job?" I says, "I would." So he says, "Get him to show us the camera, do we see?" And Mark looked at it, and he made a bracket for it, and then he mounted it in the car, and then we started to get the footage. And then the next thing, we had in-car camera, and then we were doing all the rallies across those GB rallies and whatever, and then he says, "Now we can get a library, and now we'll know exactly what them stages is like, and then when we go to do that rally again, we'll be able to pull the library up. You'll be able to look at it and you know exactly what kind of setup we need in the car." And it made a business for Charlie, and then everybody had in-car, and Charlie was running more cameras than I was running cars.
But that again, that's what you said about him. He was always looking, always watching, taking all in.
Yeah. There was always more.
Yeah,
there was always more.
Always pushing. And I suppose just before we leave the micros, there was a wee video there, and there's a couple of guys wanted to say a few words. Was Niall McShay, Mark Higgins, and Chris Atkinson as well. So Connor.
Well, Gerry, how's the form? Hope all's good with you. I'm very, very sorry I can't be there with you tonight. I'm sure there'll be a whole bunch of hooligans. I'm with a couple of hooligans here at the moment. We're in deepest, darkest China shooting a movie. Work's work and you got to do it. But hope you have a brilliant night. Thank you for everything that you've done for me, Gerry. It's been a long road, over a lot of bumps, around a lot of corners. Wishing you all the very best tonight. Have fun.
I
Hi Gerry, it's been a while since I've seen you. I'm with these reprobates now, and it's a long time ago since we were juniors, and it's nice to get the gang back together with all the rallying we've done. But amazing what you've done for all the young kids over the years, not just with the driving, all the mechanical side, everything that's involved in motorsport. And here we are, still daft enough and doing the same job now. It just, what am I, 30, no, 50 something. Yeah, anyway, still here, loving it, and with a great gang of people, and hope you have a fantastic night tonight. Take care, mate, all the best.
Yeah, shout out to you, mate, Gerry. Everything you've done for the sport, all the young drivers, all the support along the years. Hope you have a great night. I've got to unfortunately hang out with these two tonight, but I'm sure you guys will enjoy it much more back there. All the best. Thanks for everything you've done, mate.
Well, they say they can make anything in China.
But another name you mentioned there a few minutes ago, Gordon Noble as well too, was always a big part of the Mark Fisher story as well. And Gordon's going to say a few words here now as well too.
Thank you, Kevin. And just say, Gerry, it's not only the sort of technical side of the car that you're really always good at doing. There was always technical issues, and Gerry always had an angle on them, as Mark called it. But you could never take a person like Mark or Alistair or any of these other drivers who've been about over the years without teaching them a little bit of the sort of psychology as well, and the never say die type of thing, and always looking for an angle and always looking for things to make things sort of better. And one of the examples I have of where Gerry was never going to give up was on Rally GB and GB 2000, which was Mark and I's last rally in that world car, and had been building up to that point for about a year or so, I suppose. But without telling the whole story, I suppose we had a very comprehensive 5-day test in that car for the Peugeot Works car, and everything was supposed to be good to go, and we did the recce and so on. And the day before the rally, there was a bit of a very short test, and suddenly we found that the car was nowhere near where it should have been. The suspension was wrong, transmission was gone, and everything was wrong with it. So remembering this was the night prior to the rally starting and so on, we were at a black tie dinner, Bertie and Rory and a number of other people, and I'm not sure where Stella was. There she is beside me here. But in the middle of all this, in the dark, Mark was driving and Gerry was sitting on, and took this works car and rolled it. And they didn't just put a wee dent on it, they comprehensively rolled it. I think that's the way to put it. They were in Wales, in the deepest part of Wales, nowhere anywhere. Drove back to the service area, and 5 or 6 French mechanics looked at it and went, "Hon hon," and they weren't going to do anything. They said that was it, rally over. The rally was starting at lunchtime the day after. But showing Gerry's tenacity and never sort of give up standard, within an hour, he had the French mechanics and the rally car in some man's workshop. They were taking off parts of it. There was no panels that were readily sort of gathering up for that, but by lunchtime the next day the car was out. We couldn't put the decals on because the paint was still wet on it, but we got there. And again, that never give up attitude, and the way he's taught not only Mark and Alistair but all the other guys over the years, not only about how to drive the car but the mental sort of ways of doing it. He's not a qualified psychologist, but he's bloody good at it, I must say. Thank you, Gerry, for all your help over the years.
Hear, hear.
I remember just going back on that. I remember when we were in the micros, and Mark would have been over every evening. We want to go for a test. We need to go to a test. We're going to Humberside. We're going to whatever. And I remember taking him out one evening, and it was in the summertime. The weather was good. On a Wednesday, we were going to Humberside on the Saturday, and we had a run, and so much about preparation and getting your head in gear. And funny, I was talking to Elvin father, Gwyndaff, the other day, and we were just having the same conversation. And he says, so much is in your head. So much is in your head when you've got all that information, but it's being able to process it and being able to pull it up when you need it. And I remember we'd done a test and brought another guy with me, Kieran, who used to come with me and all the rallies. And went out for a test. Mark drove the car and come back and I don't know what's wrong. Go for another run. No, it doesn't feel. It's moving about, and I'm just not getting the right feel from the car. Right? Okay. So what's wrong with the car? I don't know. Listen, you're in there. You're thinking about steel. You're thinking about welding. You're thinking about jobs. You're just not dialed in here. Right? Take your time. Go for another run. Get yourself sorted out. and then drive the car. We're not leaving here. Do you have your head in gear? So that's okay. Went another couple of runs, and the next thing, bang, everything went quiet. Walked down, and the maker was in the middle of the bog. The boot lid was up. The spare wheel was about 100 yards this way. And we just looked at it, and I thought, what are we going to do here? So Mervyn Johnson, who is a very, very great friend, we went for Mervyn. Mervyn, do you know anybody who's got a tractor? We need to get this thing out of the bog. Got her pulled out of the bog. Bertie was away on holidays. He says, Bert's going to go mad. I says, well, I tell you about Bert going mad. This is Wednesday evening. The rally's on Saturday. I says, look at the shape of the car. I says, you know what happened here? Oh, I don't know. I don't care what happened here, but I'll tell you what, if he comes home and knows that we didn't go to the rally, I know we'll be looking for another house. So what are we going to do? I says, there's only one man that's going to fix that there. And he's over in Ballinamallard. Hamper. We need Hamper.
Mm-hmm.
Hamper's the only man who'll take that on. We get over and we get into Hamper. Get him up. Get him out. Right, Hamper, look at this. And that's not good. So we starts in and we starts the fixer. It was rolled every which way you could imagine. We got her squared up, and he was painting. Somebody else was putting on mud flaps. He went to walk away with the airline and the hose, and it was pop riveted in behind the mud flap. There was 40 jobs going on at the one time. So we got her on her feet. We got her on the trailer, and we headed for the rally. I took it into scrutiny, and Clive Jenkins was co-driving with him, and I was hoovering the glass out of the seats. And he says, what happened here? I says, long story, we'll tell you whenever the rally's over. So we got in, got it through scrutiny, past scrutiny. Out we goes, the start of the rally. And we're ready to go. He says, I can't believe we've got this pulled together and we've got this car sorted. I says, right, over here a minute. We need to have a chat. Right, okay. I says, this car is 4 mil short on the driver's side compared to the passenger side, right? I says, that's all down to your arson about the other night when you were out in the bog. This didn't feel right, that didn't feel right. I says, right. I says, see now? I says, get you into that car and you drive it. I says, see if there's one whimper out of you about this is not right, that's not right. I says, you'll be walking home. Banged the door. It took about 12 seconds of everybody in the first seat.
So there you are, it's all in the head.
Well, there's a big part of it.
That's for sure, that's for sure. And there's a lady here that I think would like to say a few words, Gladys Fisher. Gladys, you must be hearing some stories about Mark here tonight. Maybe you didn't want to hear, but this man here played such a huge part of Mark's rallying.
There's no doubt about that. It's tonight's been a real trip down memory lane, and sometimes I can't believe what happened in the past did happen, but we know tonight it did. And I often wondered why Mark spent hours in Gerry's garage, and now I'm not sure what they were doing.
I would say there's a lot of talking going on, you know.
I think so, a lot of theory and whatnot. Anyhow, Gerry, I'd like to say thank you for all the nice things you've said about Mark tonight.
Thank you very much, Gladys.
The funny thing about it was, Mark was what he was, and he was a great chap. And Bert was there in the background, and nothing went past Bert. Yeah. Bert.
And he made sure you played the straight ball.
Bert knew everything that was going on, and I remember Mark got an Astra, left-hand drive Astra for the drive on the road, and then he decided, this Astra is right quick, and it was a David Llewellyn recce car. So he started going out to the forest at night when there was nobody about, wee forest in around, and he was practicing and having a bit of a yodel about, you see. So the next thing, Bert arrives over Saturday morning, and he comes out of the house, and he noticed that there was something different. So he knew that it could only be two places if there was something wrong. He saw there was no Astra. So he drove over to my place. He had a look. He didn't see no Astra there, so he come back, and there was another guy, Chris Griffiths, who had a filling station forecourt where they used to go and get petrol. So the next thing, he just arrived over at Chris's, and Chris had the car hid in the garage where Mark had put it through the hedge in the forest the night before. And the next thing, Bert just pulls up, and Chris, he nearly had a fit, and he run out to beat him. And Bert just walked on past him. He says, "Fill that car with petrol." And he walked over and he opened the garage door. And he looked in. Here was the Astra.
No hiding places.
Covered in clobber. So the next thing, Bert knew what was going on.
Yes.
So he says to me after, I says, "How did you know there was something wrong?" He says, "You know what? I was just walking past the clothes basket. It was a Saturday morning, and all the clothes be washed on a Thursday or Friday. I just thought, well, a lot of clothes in that wash basket for Saturday morning." And he says, "I just happened to look into it, and they're all covered in muck. And he rightly has done something."
It was up to no good, whatever it was.
Caught.
Yes. And someday then, these one make championships. There's a lady here now, travelled all the way from Scotland to be here with you tonight. Stella Boyles, as we all know her as then. Stella, this wee man, along with the Irish contingent, made your job such a pleasure, I would say.
Oh, it was an absolute joy. I loved having the Irish. I wasn't allowed to have favourites, but you know, you just always have some favourites. And I first met Mark, and through Mark, Gerry, when he was still in the Nissans, because he was one of the people that was cheeky enough to come to the Peugeot training because it was the best when he was still driving the Nissan. And he had the charm that we actually let him do that. But you've mentioned a couple of times having the angle, having the edge, and that was what the Peugeot One Make Championship was all about. And we tried to give all the drivers there an equal standing, and it had to be the best driver that won. And now I'm hearing these stories. I'm not so sure, maybe all the cars were the same, but
some were more equal than others.
Some were more equal than others, absolutely. But you know, out of that, there was Mark. He obviously rose to the top of his year. There's Gary Jennings, there's Gareth McHale, there's Seamus, and a few other Sean's and such like among them. And I think they were all my favourites because we just had such a ball with them all. But one of the things that was quite obvious was how much help all the service crews gave each other. And Gerry would have been the first one to dive into another competitor's car if it had a problem, even if his one was doing well. So that just summed up the attitude of Gerry and all the crews and that, and just made my job so much more enjoyable. And it was a pleasure to know Gerry through that.
For sure. Gerry, oh sorry, go ahead. So.
I was just going to say, I was actually raking through a cupboard.
Yes.
Before I came here,
and she
actually found a hat. So I just.
Would you like to come up now and present it now to Gerry?
That'll be one of the few original hats left.
But Gerry, once again, that kind of marks the high regard that you were held. Stella come all the way from the top of Scotland to come here tonight to say thank you to you.
Can't believe it.
Why?
I don't know.
You're a crap we hear everybody keeps telling us.
Well, the thing about it is, you know, you have to be, if you're going to be the ringmaster, you have to crack the whip. If you're not going to listen,
no.
you need to muck up or move on.
For sure. And there's another man here now too, want to say a quick word as well too, was Mick Linford, the head man of Peugeot UK at the time as well too. Himself and Justin Dale here wanted to just say a quick word for you as well.
Hi Gerry, Mick Linford here, and I'm stood with Justin Dale. All those years ago when we used to see you around, I was Justin's boss, paying him to drive the rally car. Now, of course, he's my boss. Things change.
Hi Gerry, we just want to wish you all the best and hope you're having a great evening. Shame we couldn't be over there with you this weekend, but all the best. Look forward to seeing you soon.
All the best, Gerry.
Very kind of them two guys sending that message for you as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And like we all know the unfortunate events then that happened to the Fisher family and all. I would say your heart left rallying then for a wee while then.
It was a big blow. Big blow. It was a big blow, and things. It was just so hard to take in because it's so hard to describe how hard it was, and it was so hard for Gladys because Gladys had no recollection of what happened, and when she wakened up, everything was done and dusted, and you just think, such good people, such nice people, such honest people, that something like that can happen. And that was just the end of everything because Mark had done a deal at the Autosport show in January. He was going to drive the Works Peugeot to the British Championship. He had already brought home the Ricky car. He had been over to McLinford and he had made such a bond and a friendship with Stella and McLinford and all the Peugeot people. And I was going to build the car and run the car, and all of a sudden what happened on Sunday was, that was it. It was just all canned. And maybe a week before it happened, Bertie rang me one night and he says, what did you do with Mark's Peugeot? I says, it was sold. He says, who to? I says, well, I can't remember who got it now, but he says, any chance we could get it back? I says, I don't know, why, what do you want to do with it? He says, Sydney has a young boy called Chris, and he says, Chris is looking to maybe start rallying, and if we could get that car back, he says, I would buy it for him and, you know, maybe
get him started.
Get him started, yeah. Anyway, what happened, and the whole thing was done. I came home on the Thursday when everything was done and dusted, and, you know, not alone had nothing to do. Everything was gone. She was finished. And I thought, you know, what now? What am I going to do? So Kieran rings and says, what are we going to do now? I says, I don't know. What are we going to do, you? He says, well, Bertie was going to get a car for this boy, Chris Meek. He says, why don't we see if we can get a car for him?
So that's part one of their conversation with Gerry McGarrity. Like the emotion in the room there, you know, at that last bit when we were chatting about Mark Fisher, it was palpable. It really was, you know. And it was such an honour, Connor, to be able to relive that story.
I know, such a story, and at a point where Mark was his career was about to springboard, and unfortunately his life was so dramatically cut short. And, you know, there was a deep effect and a deep impact on Gerry and his whole, you know, wondering what's he going to do, does he want to be involved in this sport anymore? And, you know, it just then, what has now become a household name, Chris Meek, appeared on the horizon, and it was a project for Gerry to get his teeth sunk into.
Yeah, that's for sure. So there's going to be that in part two and a whole lot more as well too. So that's the latest episode of Krunching Gears, the Rally podcast. And until the next time, take care, speak soon, and bye.
That's the proudest day, and the proudest time, and the seat of a rally car. Because that day, and that hour, and those minutes, I got the bit between my teeth. You know, I really stood up and was counted and said, this is not getting away. I remember when we pulled on our helmets and Donald says to me, what are we doing? I said, we're going for gold, Barrett. That's all we said. I can still picture that run. That was just the best run ever.